you're still ruining the rest of your day because you're feeling guilty about not going. Saying no does not make you a mean person. It does not make you selfish. It makes you a person that values your time and your energy, your peace against things that might drain you or people that might drain you. Hey ladies, welcome back to another video. My name is Jasmine. I'm the founder of Worthy to Pursue, where I help women overcome limiting beliefs, build self-worth, and pursue the lives they are meant to live. Now, I'm a mental health coach, a wife, and a mom. And today we are starting week 2 of our series, Worthy to Love. Now, today we're talking about boundaries and why boundaries are the ultimate form of self-care and self-love. Now, I don't know about you, but there are so many seasons in my life where I have felt just not good overall in my overall health, where I was completely burnt out. I was resentful that we had to go to an event. I was just tired, drained. And when it comes down to the core of it, it's because I was not putting boundaries, the proper boundaries in place. Number one, in the relationship with myself, and then also in my relationship with other people. And today we're going to talk about why boundaries are so important for your overall health, for your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, as well as your emotional health. Now, when I first started to recognize the importance of boundaries, it was as a newlywed. So a little bit about my history. My father is a pastor, so I am a PK. And I was heavily involved in my dad's church. I did a lot of things. And so when I got married, I transitioned from being involved in my dad's church to now going to a completely different church, the church that my husband goes to, and now, which is now our church home, and getting involved in that ministry. And so there was this transition that happened maybe the first year of marriage. And obviously, I was used to being there for my parents and taking on a lot of responsibilities. But as I started to transition into my newlywed life, also that year, I was a teacher in the past, so I started teaching at a different school. I was a newlywed teaching at a different school. I was involved in a different ministry. And so it was just a lot going on in that time in my life. And I was just tired all the time. On top of that, my husband at the time, he was a firefighter and he was working his shifts where he would go to work 24 hours and then we would only have 2 days in between. And so, as a newly married couple, that schedule was really tough on us because some days I didn't even get to see him until like 8 o'clock that night. And that really sucked, especially if he had to go to work the next day. And so, we weren't spending a whole bunch of time together. And so, the time that we did have together was very valuable to us. And it was very important to us to spend that time together as a newly married couple. The issue with that is that the days where we did have together, like those 2 days in between his shift, I was unknowingly filling up our calendar because I didn't know how to put boundaries in place with other people. And I was filling up our calendar with, saying yes to every single thing we were invited to, whether it was, another church program, whether it was coming out to eat, whether it was, a friends gathering or something like that. And what I discovered is that number one, we were burnt out. He was not getting any rest. My husband wasn't getting any rest from his, shift, and he had to turn right back around and go back to work again. And then we weren't spending any time together as a couple, which left us feeling disconnected at sometimes in our earlier on in our marriage. And so, what I had to learn was how to put boundaries in place, number one, with myself. And I had to learn how to stop feeling guilty for saying no or stop feeling guilty for saying, hey, I need to spend this time with Shori or I have something else that I have to do. So I'm sorry, I can't make it to your event or I can't go to this. So I had to learn how to stop feeling guilty from saying no to things. And I also had to learn how to put boundaries in place with myself as well in order for me to feel better, as an individual person, and then also for our marriage to get the love and the attention that it needed. So, boundaries are essential to your personal growth and your overall well being. I want you to think of boundaries like a fence. A lot of people think of boundaries like it's this wall, like you're saying no to everyone and everything. But I don't want you to think of boundaries like that. I want you to think of boundaries like a fence. When you have a fence, whether it's in your front yard or your backyard, you are the person that has the power that allows access to the people on the outside to come in or out of your home. You also have the power to allow when and how often they come in and out of your home. And so I want you to think of yourself like a home, right? And I want you to think of your boundaries like a fence. And when you have a good fence up, a proper fence is working good, it's not flimsy, pieces aren't missing, you have a strong protection to protect what's most important to you. And that's your time, your energy, your peace, all those different things. And so look at boundaries like a fence that you are allowing people in and out to have access to you. And so there are so many different types of boundaries you can put up in your life. You have your physical boundaries where you have your privacy, your personal touch, where people aren't just allowed to put hands on you or touch you anytime they want. So that's a physical boundary. You have a time boundary where you're not saying yes to everything, where you have specific times that you do specific things, and whatever time you have left over, you are the decider on how you want to spend your time. Like, you're not saying yes to every single event that you are invited to, or you're not being pressured into doing something that you don't want to do with your extra time. You also have emotional boundaries where you are protecting your emotions against the emotions of other people. So you're not absorbing the emotions of other people. Having emotional boundaries are very important, especially if you already know what type of person this person is. And everybody has maybe one or two people that might be popping up in your mind right now where they are just emotionally draining for whatever reason. Whatever reason, I don't know the person. I know I have people in my life like that, but when you have an emotional boundary up and you have to engage with that person, you are putting up that boundary to where I am not going to take on the emotions that this person is experiencing. And so you're not absorbing their emotions, and their emotions are not becoming your emotions and causing you to go into a place that you never intended to go emotionally. Then you have what's called mental boundaries. So, mental boundaries are you guarding your thoughts and you guarding yourself against negative influences. So, whether that be influence outside of yourself or even your own thoughts, that can sometimes go unchecked. So, when you have those mental boundaries up, you're not taking on the negative influences of other people. And then you're also guarding your own thoughts and what you allow yourself to think and to kind of ruminate on. So you're this repetitive thinking where you're thinking about it over and over again. Then you have what's called your spiritual boundaries, where you are protecting your faith and your values. We live in a society where if you say what you believe, or something that you believe in whatever area, especially in the age of social media, it's very easy to feel attacked or to be criticized. But when you have your spiritual boundaries up and they're strong, then you're protecting your faith and your values and the things that are important to you, and you're not worried about what anyone else may say about it. So now we're going to talk about why boundaries are the ultimate form of self-care. Now, when you have boundaries up in your relationship with other people, you're teaching them how to treat you. You have some people in life that are natural givers and natural takers. And when you have those boundaries up in your relationships with other people, the people that are natural takers in your life, you will teach them what's okay and what's not okay in their relationship with you. And so when you're not putting that boundary up, you're showing that other person that you really don't have self-respect for yourself. Because when you have self-respect for yourself, you are protecting yourself against outside things that are harmful towards you. Number two, boundaries are the ultimate form of self-care and self-love because they help you prioritize your time without guilt. Like I told you all before, when I first got married, I used to feel so guilty if I didn't attend an event or if I had to say no to something or to someone that, I had a close relationship with because I needed to do something else with my time. And so when you have boundaries up, these natural boundaries in your life, you're able to prioritize without feeling guilty. Because let's be honest, like, what's the purpose of saying no to someone? Like, if they ask you to do something or whatever, and you say no, right? So you're not there physically, but emotionally and mentally, the only thing you can think about is feeling guilty about not being able to be there for that person. And so when you have a boundary in your life, whether it's in your finances, your time, whatever, you're able to prioritize what's important to you without feeling guilty. So I want you all to remember that you can't pour from an empty cup. So most of the time when you're saying no to someone else, you're saying yes to yourself, right? Like if they're saying like, "Hey, can you, come and help me move on your only day off?" and you're not going to get another day off until another month. Well, if you say no to that person, then you're able to say yes to you. And I'm not advocating for selfishness or anything like that. Hey, your time is your time, and it is up to you how you want to spend your time. And if you're able to help and it does not harm you, then help. That's what the Bible tells us to do. But if you're helping someone and it's harming you and it's making you feel completely drained or overstimulated or, something like that, then it might be a good idea to put up a boundary in that place. Now, number 3, boundaries and having boundaries will help you break the cycle of people pleasing. So, people pleasing is often rooted in the fear of rejection. And so if you people please, you think that people will, accept you, they're going to love you, they're going to be there for you. But when you have up a boundary in, whatever area that you need to have it up in, you are not going to be afraid of the rejection of other people. And it's going to help you break that cycle of people pleasing. So boundaries help you stay firm in who you are without being afraid of the opinions of other people. If you put up a boundary, you are respecting yourself and showing that you have self-respect, self-love, that you have enough sense to take care of yourself and protect the things that are important to you, regardless of what someone else may think about you. So we're in the middle of our 21-day love challenge, and every single day there's a prompt. And day 6, which was last Saturday, the daily prompt was, what boundary do you need to put in place? And when people think of boundaries, I think they automatically think of the boundaries that they need to have with other people. But my mind immediately went to the boundary that I need to put in place with myself. And this was amazing to me because I never thought of intentionally setting boundaries with myself. I mean, I guess there are habits that I have that are natural that I know is good for me, but I never thought of it as a boundary. And so I wanted to talk about this as well when we're talking about boundaries, why it's important to have boundaries with other people as well as to have boundaries with yourself. We cannot just do anything that we want to do. Like if you're a Christian, you know about walking in the spirit and walking in the flesh. And we know that if left to our natural desires, like we would just be completely out of control. We would eat whatever we want to eat. We will watch whatever we want to watch. We'll think about whatever we want to think about, do whatever we want to do. And so that's why it's important to have boundaries and habits that you set up to really control yourself and to discipline yourself. Some people might call it self-discipline. But so I wanted to talk about the boundaries that we have with ourselves and why those boundaries are important as well. So number 1, boundaries with ourselves are so important because it helps us hold ourselves accountable, and it helps us to become people that keeps our word, whether it's to ourselves or to other people. If we can't hold ourselves accountable, then we can't hold other people accountable either. Number 2, having boundaries with yourself builds a sense of trust within yourself and confidence within yourself that you are the type of person that will do what you said you would do. If you said that you're going to wake up at 5 a.m. and work out before work, and you continue to hit that snooze button, well, you're not going to have that much confidence in your word and in yourself. But if you are the type of person that you say, you know what, today I'm eating clean, or today I'm getting up and I'm working out, or today I'm going to spend my time with God, or today I'm going to follow up on that commitment that I said I was going to do. every single time you do the thing that you said you would do and you keep that boundary with yourself, you are building up self trust and confidence within your ability to do the things that you need to do. So, some examples of healthy boundaries that we have with ourselves is sticking to the commitments that we make. I was the queen of not sticking to it. Lord, God has delivered me and He's helped me grow so much because I would say I would do something knowing good and well that I'm not going to do it, right? Like I'll say, "Oh, I'm gonna, I'll do this," and I know in the back of my brain I'm not gonna do it, right? Like so, the Bible says, "Let your yes be yes and your no be no," and so you don't want to be divided in your talk and what you allow yourself to do and what you say that you're going to do. And so when you keep those commitments to yourself, it helps you build a healthy boundary with yourself. So that can be your workout routine, that can be your morning routine, it can be your commitment that you make to other people. You want to be, a person that, and there has to be a balance to it. You don't want to overcommit and just leave yourself feeling drained and tired, but you also want to be you also want other people to trust your word too. Like if you tell someone, I'm going to show up, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, then make sure you follow through and do it. But before you commit to it, you need to think about the cost that is going to take in order to do it. Another example of having a healthy boundary with yourself is to not allow yourself to indulge in negative self talk or self sabotage. And so, negative self talk is so important as well as self sabotage. And the way that you can kind of identify, especially self sabotage, is if you notice this cycle. And it can be in different areas, it can be in your health, your friendships, your relationships. If you notice the same outcome, but just with maybe a different circumstance or different people, then that might be a clue that you're self-sabotaging in a particular area in your life. If you feel, you're always starting over with something, or you're always having to start from day one, or if you feel like, oh, this always happens, like if there is a pattern, then I would really sit down and do a little self-reflection to try to connect the dots, because more than likely you're self-sabotaging. Prioritizing rest and not overworking yourself is another form of having a healthy boundary with yourself. I know we live in a culture where everything is about grind, 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 and I'll sleep when I die, and just that type of mindset. But at the end of the day, it's not healthy, because you'll find yourself completely burnt out. You'll find yourself making decisions and choices, not knowing that it's coming from a place of you not resting and that you're not thinking in your right mind. And so you need to prioritize rest, and you need to prioritize valuing your time and not overcommitting to other people or other things. Lastly, saying no to toxic behaviors and traits that drain you is another form of having a healthy boundary with yourself. And these can be toxic traits from yourself or the toxic traits of other people, but just simply saying no and just stopping it. If it's you, always starting over and never keeping your word, always finding yourself doing the thing that you said you wouldn't do, like whether, we talked about this in the video last week. If you need accountability, if you need some counseling, if you need some coaching, whatever you might need in order to help you stop that behavior, it's important to invest in that so that you can have a healthy boundary with yourself. Okay, ladies, so now we're going to talk about how do you actually set up these boundaries with other people in your relationship with others. Remember, this can be coworkers, it can be friends, family, romantic relationships. How do we set up these boundaries without feeling guilty and without giving into people pleasing? For one, you have to know your limits. I can't set up your boundaries just like you can't set up my boundaries. I don't know you personally. And even the people that I do know personally, they know themselves better and they know what works for them and what does not work for them. And so you have to know your limits. If you don't know your limits, you need to take some time and do some self reflection and see what your limits are. But if you do know your limits and you do know that something is draining you or it's not helping you, then you need to set up a boundary with that. And so, to know your limits, you can think about what makes you feel uncomfortable or what drains you. And so, if you can kind of start there, that'll help you to start identifying what your limits are. So, what is uncomfortable for you? And number two, what is draining you? Number two is you have to communicate clearly. You have to be able to say, no, that doesn't work for me, or I'm sorry, I can't attend. And you don't have to give an explanation for it if you don't want to. Now, if you feel like the need to give an explanation, then you can. It's completely up to you. But you can simply say, no, I can't make it to that event, or I'm sorry, I'm not available for that. Just communicate clearly. If you want to give an explanation, then you can. If you don't feel the need to, then you don't have to. Number three, you have to be firm in your decision. If you say, no, I'm sorry, I can't make it to that, or no, I'm not available, then stand on your decision, stand on business, right? Like, don't go back and feel guilty, or don't. You're still ruining the rest of your day because you're feeling guilty about not going. Saying no does not make you a mean person. It does not make you selfish. It makes you a person that values your time and your energy, your peace against things that might drain you or people that might drain you. And lastly, ladies, remember you are going to experience resistance, especially for people that don't have boundaries up already or they have very little boundaries up. You are going to experience people giving you pushback. They're going to say, oh, you know, you can do it, or I wish you can do it. You'll have some people that will try to make you feel guilty about not doing it, or even they might try to manipulate you into doing it. So already know going into it, you are going to experience pushback. You to stay strong. You know, once again, you can use words like, I just need some time for myself right now. I'm not available to make it. I already have something else to do. Let me tell y'all, if we get invited to something or someone asks me or my husband to do something, I could literally be like at the house and say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not available for that because I am engaged in something else. Like, I'm engaged in some self care, I'm engaged in family time, I'm doing something else that is feeding my soul and feeding my spirit. Now, remember, ladies, I'm not advocating for selfishness or anything like that. I'm not advocating for you to become this selfish person, to be like a hermit crab. That's not what I'm advocating. I'm advocating for a healthy balance between you prioritizing what's important to you. So remember, we talked about you being the house and you having the fence, right? Your house, the things that are inside of your house are the most valuable things, right? If you think about your house and what you have in your home, it's things that are important to you. And so if you think about yourself as a house, your time, your energy, your peace of mind, all of those things are important to you. And so that fence that we talked about is allowing people to have access to you, and then how often they have access to you. Okay, ladies, so remember in our discussion today that boundaries protect your overall well-being. It protects your peace, it protects your mental health, your spiritual health, your physical health, your emotional health, in your relationship with other people, as well as in the relationship with yourself. Boundaries is the ultimate form of self-respect and self-care. I want you to remember that you are not responsible how other people respond to your boundaries. So if you are the type of woman that struggles with setting boundaries, whether it's with other people or yourself, I want you to remember that you are worthy of rest, you're worthy of saying no, and you are worthy of protecting your heart and the things that are most valuable and most important to you. You have to love yourself enough to set the limits that you need. And once again, I can't set those boundaries for you. Only you can set those boundaries for you. As I end this video today, I want you all to think about what is one boundary that you need to set with other people, and what's one boundary you need to set with yourself. That will help just your overall well-being. So I want you ladies to comment down below your experience with boundaries. If you're really good with boundaries, like what are some advice you can give to other women? Or if this is an area that you need to grow in, I want you to comment down below as well. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you all next week.